Good afternoon, everyone. This is Khalid Abu Jalala. I'm a third-year medical student at Qatar University, and I'm also the Vice President for Qatar's Medical Student Association. I'd like to welcome you all to our panel for today. Before we start, I'd like to introduce you to what QMSA is. So QMSA, or Qatar Medical Student Association, is the first association in Qatar uniting all healthcare students to redefine healthcare one student at a time. We work towards contributing to our local, regional, and also international community via 6 different committees, each tackling a specific area of work. We gained our full membership in the International Federation of Medical Student Association, IFMSA, in August 2019. IFMSA is one of the world's oldest and largest student-run organizations, representing more than 130 national member organizations all around the globe. We aim to inspire, empower, and equip medical students in Qatar to take an active role in healthcare, both locally and globally. And basically, we do that by providing a professional platform to engage through joint dialogue. We not only work towards contributing to healthcare via campaigns, events, and advocacy, but also we work towards developing the next generation of healthcare leaders and professionals via capacity building, workshops, training sessions, and international representations. I'd like now to move to my colleagues and panelists for today to introduce themselves and to get to know more about them. So Dana, would you please start?
Hello, everybody. My name is Dana Al-Ali. I am a fifth-year medical student in Weill Cornell Medical College, and I am this year's Vice President of Members for QMSA, and I previously served as the Vice President of External Affairs. Off to you, Yasmi.
Hello, everyone. I'm a fourth-year medical student at Qatar University College of Medicine, and I'm serving as a National Officer for Human Rights and Peace. And previously, I've served last term as a local officer for Human Rights and Peace for Qatar University, and I'm glad to be here. Moving on to Edmund.
Hello, everyone. It's truly a pleasure to be here. My name is Agla, and I'm currently a sixth-year medical student at Vilnius University, currently serving as Vice President for External Affairs at the International Federation of Medical Student Associations. Thank you.
Thank you, my colleagues, and we're so happy to have you on board. So our audience, through this panel, we will be walking you through an introduction to meaningful youth involvement and how it is being applied to achieve the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And for that, we'll be covering 3 themes, which will be peer advocacy, institutional collaboration, and public education through directing specific questions to our panelists. So today, we're seeing more involvement of youth-led organizations in global health spaces and how they're advocating for more meaningful engagement of young generations. For that, Egle, I'd like to ask you, as a representative for medical students across the world, why do you think the youth should be involved in discussions regarding the global health and community development?
Thank you for the excellent question. So I think to start with, it's important to note that today youth constitute 1.8 billion people on Earth, which is actually the largest number ever in the history of humanity. Therefore, if we truly wish to follow the United Nations principle of leaving no one behind, there is no way not to consider youth populations. It is crucial to note also that global issues, and obviously such issues as the health emergencies we're facing today, but also climate change and other global health matters, require multi-stakeholder engagement. And when we talk about youth, we must never forget that young people are key influencers, as they play so many and such diverse roles in our societies. Just to mention the few, youth are both the public and the private sector, but also the civil society and the academia, and also we are consumers of the healthcare. Therefore, it is very important that stakeholders create platforms and help us to work on our advocacy to foster a strong and most essentially independent voice of the youth. And it's also important to leverage such skills that we have. And there are quite unique skills, social media, technological innovation, but also grassroots advocacy. And just coming back also to the health perspective, youth is a major part of the global healthcare workforce. Therefore, youth perspectives are not merely needed, they are simply invaluable. And you may also have heard already that next year, which is 2021, it was deemed by World Health Organization as the International Year of Health and Care Workers. So it's also crucial not to forget that youth also play a huge part in that and are also health and care workers. Thank you so much for the question.
Thank you so much, Egle. It was an excellent answer, and I totally second your points. Now that we've understood why we should include the youth, Dana, would you like to tell us more on how organizations might benefit from such a participation?
So definitely, Khalid. So just to add a bunch on what Egle has already mentioned in terms of what the youth can contribute to a project or a development. When it comes to meaningful youth participation, it will definitely have a positive impact on an organization's project or event. And this can be attributing it in many ways. Particularly, what I'd like to focus on is that when you're involving the youth in a project, you're gaining a fresh and new perspective to tackling a concern with a project, or even working with day-to-day tasks by proposing innovative methods to taking these tasks and deal with them more efficiently. Not only that, but when you're involving the youth, you are recruiting a younger demographic into your organization. And that can serve in two things. One, you're already increasing reach out for your organization to the youth population that you may not have been doing so earlier on. And only that, but also you will also get to be able to let that project allow it to be carried on for future generations. Because what you're doing is that you're creating a sense of social accountability for this upcoming generation to sustain these impactful initiatives in the long run so they don't die out and maintain in the future to come. So what I'm trying to say is that when you are involving the youth, you are involving an entire generation that can provide you insight and thinking outside the box. And so any project can grow immensely from that. And that's why meaningful youth participation is playing an inevitable role in organizations and collaborations and how they can benefit from this meaningful youth participation.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Dana, for this response. I'm sure now by this time, audience are really striving to know how now can organizations incorporate meaningful youth participation. And for that, Egle, I'd like to ask you, what would be the ways which organizations can promote meaningful youth participation?
Thank you once again for the excellent question, and also it was great to hear Dana's perspective as well. So to build on how to actually carry out the meaningful youth engagement, there are many different ways to ensure this, but I would say that the most important thing is to not to forget the principle, nothing about us without us. So while it is important that youth are given different advocacy spaces, and for example, even this event we're having right now, it's a great example of a meaningful youth engagement space, and it's really great that we are having this right now. So not only giving these spaces, but also making sure that youth are involved at every step of every process that is concerning them. And that is especially crucial when we're talking about advocacy. So making sure that youth are not only given the seat at the table, but also are actively contributing to processes happening before the advocacy project starts, but also in the follow-up, so that we have continuous meaningful youth engagement.
Thank you so much, Egle. That was really great to know. For now, I'd like to start with our panel's main topic. So as we all know, there's a global effort towards fulfilling sustainable development goals, and that basically by addressing pressing issues from the source. And QMSA has contributed to this global mission by directing its initiatives at the level of peer advocacy, public education, and institutional collaboration. So starting with our first pillar for the day, which would be peer advocacy. Yasmin, why was peer education and advocacy an essential pillar of QMSA's work during the past year? And we would be grateful if you could give us some more insight on the initiatives that were done.
Thank you so much for that question, Khalid. So in QMSA, we believe that one of the most powerful ways we can contribute to sustainable development is through grassroots change. Peer education and advocacy is an essential effort in empowering the youth to address issues that matter to their communities and matter to them. And it allows for continuous positive change in communities, not only for this generation, but for generations that will follow as well. What makes QMSA so powerful and how we address these issues is that we address it as youth and we help each other grow. And that way we can sustain a continuous development. During the past year, many of our initiatives involved peer education and advocacy as a key tool in raising awareness, reinforcing the global ideals, and creating a network of students who pass on their knowledge onto others. We have trained medical students and healthcare students on a vast range of focus areas targeted by our 6 different committees, and these included social inequity, mental health, child abuse, and gender-based violence. One such initiative was our last National General Assembly, which united healthcare students both locally and internationally to open up the conversation of the immense impact that social inequity has in healthcare and within the healthcare community itself. We have provided a platform for students to pass on their knowledge, and we made sure that most of our sessions were carried out by healthcare students themselves. And this allowed for a knowledge to be exchanged between those who were impacted to another population who were impacted as well. And this allowed for an exchange of information that was valid and that was relevant and that was relatable for the audience as well. And we've seen the impact of having it this way by seeing our international delegates reach out to us and to try and implement similar sessions, and to even though they would not necessarily relate to the situation here in Qatar, they could again use that knowledge and apply it to their situation and to apply it to cause change in their own communities and in their own institutions. We have also focused our efforts during the year in tackling mental health throughout the entire year, with multiple projects that were brought together by healthcare students, carried out by healthcare students, and they were for healthcare students. And this effort was to make sure that we as students, we as the youth who are going to form the next generation healthcare providers are directly involved in the change that we were advocating for and the change that we were trying to create. And it was very essential to see and very empowering to see how much people actually cared about being a part of that decision-making process and being a part of that, that change that they wanted to see. We've also carried out multiple sessions on training healthcare students on tackling child abuse and domestic violence in the clinic, and to be able to teach them that and to see them pass that information on to the rest of their colleagues was truly amazing and inspiring as I was serving last year. So what I'm trying to say is that QMSA, the essential pillar of QMSA is actually us educating ourselves and then educating others, and hoping that that continues onto more and more students and more of the young generation. And I'm glad to say that, to see that we will continue on inspiring and empowering youth and creating the change that they want to see in the world, and advocating for issues that matter to them most, and being directly involved in those decision-making processes and creating those changes. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Yasmin. It's really, really heartwarming to know that such initiatives are coming from today's youth, whom one day will be our future leaders. Moving to our second pillar for the day, which is going to be institutional collaboration. Dana, a good organization is definitely built on widening its outreach through external collaboration. So as the former Vice President of External Affairs, do you believe that QMSA played an important role in representing the youth with significant stakeholders in the country?
Thank you, Khaled, for that question. I was waiting for it. So yes, I definitely do believe that youth representation plays a very important role when it comes to collaborations with stakeholders. And QMSA has been showing that through its collaborations in Qatar. Now, at the beginning as VPE, I understood why organizations were hesitant somewhat to collaborate with the youth. But here's what I have from experience. I can guarantee you that when meaningful youth participation is involved in a project, and if done correctly, any project success can grow exponentially, reaching new potentials because of the youth's contribution. Why believe me? So here are some examples of QMSA's collaborations with institutes regionally and locally that have been very good in terms of achieving a unified goal with the organization or collaborator. Starting off, we are currently having this meeting because of some difficult circumstances over Zoom or over an online platform. And that is because we are currently fighting an ongoing global COVID-19 pandemic. So QMSA, to fight this, launched a national response plan. And in its national response plan, we collaborated with 12 regional student-led organizations and the Ministry of Public Health here in Qatar. And we were able to get more than 100 volunteers that worked for more than 2,500 hours, all collectively contributing to flattening the curve here in Qatar. And we did this by multiple things. We raised awareness, we raised public awareness, we aided in policy-making documentation, we manned hotlines, and we also helped with contact tracing and investigations with the ministry. We didn't stop there. We also collaborated with Education Above All, which is an initiative led under Her Highness Sheikha Moza bint Nasser. And in Education Above All, in our collaboration, we strive to deliver a well-rounded curriculum to underprivileged children currently receiving their schooling in the 2 Al Salam schools. Under our leadership, our volunteers have designed very creative and innovative programs, I must say, that surround a variety of topics. So these topics covered climate change, mental and physical well-being, reproductive health, human rights and discrimination. In addition, we wanted to give them further skills. So we wanted to improve their leadership as well as their professional skills. So we integrated a reading program along with that, and we introduced them to debate and science clubs to just help them get a well-rounded feeling of education. Now, again, we didn't stop there. With the emerging global interest that we have in mental health and its destigmatization, QMSA had to take part. So we collaborated with the World Psychiatric Association as well as Sidra Medicine to launch for the first time in Qatar's inaugural medical student conference on psychiatry and mental health. And there we had well-renowned psychiatrists, psychologists, mental health specialists work alongside healthcare students side by side to deliver workshops, panel discussions, and trainings to more than 80 attendees that have attended. This project was also presented in the 16th Eastern Mediterranean Regional Conference in IFMSA, and that ignited further interest in mental health and even encouraged the replication of such a project within different national organizations in the EMR region. Now, what I'm trying to tell you here from this examples is that you saw that effect of one project, one program in Qatar has led to an accelerating effect across the entire region. So we don't have just a local effect when it comes to collaborations. We take it further to having a national and a regional effect when it comes to collaborations. So when it comes to the youth, it is time to invest in us. Take a chance, and I can guarantee you that with done correctly, there's a bi-directional benefit between the youth and the organization or collaborator that will lead to the growth of both of these organizations. Back to you, Khalid.
Thank you so much, Dana. It's definitely astonishing to know that such initiatives have come from youth, that you have tackled such issues, including mental health, which was really affected by the lockdown. And it's very, very, very heartwarming again to know that youth are playing a significant role and being active participants in such hard times, let's say. So I'd like to move to our third pillar for the day, which is going to be for public education. And I'll go back to you, Yasmin. So Yasmin, a major part of QMSA's impact comes basically from public education. So in your capacity as a representative for our national officers, how did QMSA positively influence the knowledge of the local and global community?
Thank you for this excellent question, because it allows me to highlight the importance of QMSA and their efforts, and the fact that they are not just targeted towards issues that affect the younger generations or the youth, but the whole community. As youth, it is important for us to escape our little echo chamber and advocate for and educate all levels of the general population. So throughout the past year, we have held many campaigns that aimed at raising awareness and educating the community on various topics that were, again, based on the focus areas of our 6 standing committees. QMSA has partnered with key stakeholders in Qatar to tackle those issues. One such example would be our partnership with Aman, which is the Protection and Social Rehabilitation Center here in Qatar. And they have allowed us to distribute their materials and to widen their outreach and to make the general population aware of the existence of such an institution. We were able to do this by participating in the Children's Health Fair and educating the children on how to recognize that they're undergoing abuse and how to ask help and how to reach out to safe adults and how to reach out to these safe institutions to get help. Our committees on sexual and reproductive health and rights, as well as our committee on human rights and peace, have not only trained healthcare students on tackling domestic violence and gender-based violence, but they have also carried out large-scale awareness campaigns highlighting the significance of domestic violence and the significance of the issue. And our aim was to educate the general public on how to recognize abuse and how to reach out and get help. And these efforts were not just confined to the borders of Qatar, but we've also carried out campaigns highlighting several institutions that do provide help, especially in the Middle East and North African regions. We have already seen the impact of this has had in our communities, as we have established ourselves as an important source of reliable information for those who were looking for help. We have had numerous large numbers of the community reaching out to us to learn more about violence and domestic violence and how to get help here in Qatar. And the responses we have received urge us to devise proposals for the Ministry of Public Health to better the services that are available here in Qatar, as well as partner with experts in their fields to make sure that we're educating others with the most accurate and reliable information that we can get. We have also seen students demanding reporting systems to be implemented in their institutions as they became more aware of these pressing issues, and they were able to have this knowledge and have the confidence to be able to demand these changes. And one of the biggest impacts that we've had in the community was in our efforts in destigmatizing key issues such as mental health, as Dana has previously mentioned, as well as individuals who are living with HIV and AIDS. We have had a Beyond Positive campaign that's aimed at tearing down the walls and validating the experiences and stories of individuals who live with HIV and AIDS. The campaign was not there to tackle how and why the disease comes about, but it was more to give a safe space for the people who are suffering and who are living with this condition, and to make them more visible in the community and make their stories more visible to everyone. QMSA has vigorously tried to direct its efforts to positively impact the knowledge of the public, and I feel like this became most apparent with the COVID-19 pandemic. Our Public Health Committee's efforts in distributing reliable and accurate information in regards to the coronavirus pandemic with the developing health crisis truly showed the power of youth in positively influencing their communities. Shortly after the pandemic reached Qatar, we initiated the Don't Panic, Take Action project, which aimed at distributing information in 6 key languages here in Qatar on how to take precautions on to calm the general public as this health crisis was as we were living through this health crisis. And this initiative contributed to the global effort of distributing correct information and helped in flattening the curve by providing essential knowledge on precautionary measures to the general public, which was available again in 6 different languages, further widening our outreach in the community. So what I'm trying to get to is that QMSA has continuously directed its efforts into raising awareness and educating our community to sustain a positive change in attitudes and understandings surrounding various relevant issues. We will keep doing our part in fulfilling sustainable development goals by involving the community, by involving those people who are affected the most by these issues into these conversations and into these spaces to share their stories, to share their experiences, and to educate them further on such topics.
Thank you so much, Yasmin. Thank you for this prompt answer. I'm sure that now our audience are really glad to see that our efforts as youth has a great impact on the public, showing how much we have and how much we want to give to improve our societies. Now that we've looked at this topic from a local point of view, I'd like to look at it now from a larger perspective, an international point of view. And for that, Egle, given that QMSA is one of many national organizations that IFMSA represents, what are the key areas of action that unite all these student-led organizations in their efforts to support sustainable development goals?
Thank you so much for your question. So, of course, the Sustainable Development Goals are at the very core of the United Nations 2030 agenda, so they are very relevant to IFMSA and we take them very seriously. So firstly, I would like to note that each year IFMSA adopts a set of global priorities, which are also largely linked with the Sustainable Development Goals. So some of the examples would include climate change, gender equity, as well as health emergencies. But what I would like to note is that sometimes we also have noticed that actually some of our member organizations do not have that much awareness of how they can work and how can they empower their members to work on the Sustainable Development Goals. So for this, we have established a separate body, which is the External Affairs International Team that is dedicated specifically on working on the Sustainable Development Goals. And there are many different perspectives to unite our NMOs. For example, one of the key things that unite our NMOs, the national member organizations, are our policy documents, which express the stance of more than 1.3 million medical students. And it is essential that these policy documents are also aligned to the Sustainable Development Goals. Moreover, it is quite important that we also streamline all the great efforts that NMOs like QMSA Qatar do and all their great projects, and that our stakeholders are actually aware of that. So for this, we are working on another initiative, which is the Sustainable Development Goals Report. So throughout the last 2 years, we are aiming to collect all of the activities that were done on the local and grassroots level by our national member organizations, and to collect them into a report to be used as an advocacy tool to show how much IFMSA as a youth organization and our members all around the world are making an impact to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals agenda, and to amplify the efforts of our members as well. Lastly, I would like to note that also it is quite important for the national member organizations to be aware of also different ways that they can make an impact. For example, each year the high-level political forum is happening in July, where the Sustainable Development Goals are reviewed annually. And the countries and also youth organizations, not necessarily IFMSA linked, but all youth organizations have a chance to submit their own reports on the progress of the Sustainable Development Goals. And this is also a different way to hold the stakeholders accountable in one's own country. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Egle. That was really great to know that IFMSA and the international levels are actually interested in what we're doing on our local communities. By now, I believe we came to an end of our panel. Thank you, our audience, for your attentive attendance and listening. And on behalf of QMSA Qatar, I'd like to thank our great speakers for volunteering their time and contributions in today's panel. And of course, I'd like to thank Wish for having us today and helping us to have a heard voice. I'd also like the audience to rest assured that QMSA's journey in empowering the youth for a healthier community will continue and grow with the contributions to come. And for that, I'd like to invite all our audience members to keep in touch through our Instagram accounts. You can use the handle QMSA_Qatar. And on a final thought, every person of us has a role in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, empowering the youth and accelerating the progress of the United Nations 2030 agenda. So don't sit back and take action. Thank you so much, everyone.